Burkina Faso's President Ibrahim Traore survives assassination, plot amid Russian commando deployment. Burkina Faso is currently grappling with intense political instability following a failed assassination attempt against President Ibrahim Traore. In a decisive and controversial move, Traoré has invited Russian special forces into the country to secure his regime, raising critical questions about Burkina Faso's shifting geopolitical alliances and the nature of the threats facing his administration. Since seizing power in September 2022, Traoré has faced constant pressure from both internal dissent and external threats. The security situation has been further destabilized by insurgent groups operating across the Sahel region, many of whom exploit the country's fragile political environment. These groups have openly targeted the government, seeking to expand their influence amid the chaos. Domestically, factions within Burkina Faso's military and political elite have repeatedly tried to undermine Traoré's leadership. The most serious of these attempts occurred in April 2025, when a sophisticated coup plot aimed at overthrowing the government was uncovered. The operation reportedly involved both current and former military officers, as well as insurgent collaborators. Sources suggest that some conspirators may have had backing from foreign actors with an interest in Burkina Faso's strategic resources. This attempted coup, which sought not just to remove Traoré but to dismantle his entire administration, was a wake-up call for the government. In response, Traoré took extraordinary action by inviting Russian special forces to provide high-level security for him and other key officials. This move underscores the seriousness of the threat and the urgency of securing the nation's leadership. The Russian commandos, experienced in elite security and counter-insurgency operations, have been tasked with protecting the president, fortifying critical infrastructure, and supporting intelligence and surveillance efforts. Their role goes beyond mere protection. They are also providing military training to Burkina Faso's forces, helping develop counterintelligence capabilities and combat readiness to confront insurgent and internal threats. This cooperation reflects a deepening partnership between Burkina Faso and Russia, signaling a major geopolitical shift. Traoré's decision to turn to Moscow marks a significant departure from the country's traditional reliance on Western allies, especially France. For years, Burkina Faso was part of the French-led military operations in the Sahel, but relations with Paris have deteriorated amid growing dissatisfaction with French involvement in African affairs. As France scales back its regional presence, including a withdrawal from neighboring Mali, Burkina Faso has sought new partners. Russia's growing influence across Africa, combined with its willingness to support regimes facing internal conflict, has made it an attractive ally for Traoré. The arrival of Russian forces marks a new chapter in Burkina Faso's security strategy. It reflects the government's determination to assert control amid a volatile political environment, and the lengths to which President Traoré is willing to go to ensure the survival of his leadership. Russia's strategic expansion in Burkina Faso, a new chapter in African geopolitics. Unlike many Western nations that attach conditions to their military assistance, Russia has positioned itself as a willing and dependable partner to African governments striving for autonomy from Western influence. Its involvement in Burkina Faso goes beyond the immediate objective of protecting President Ibrahim Traoré. It signifies a calculated effort to establish a long-term strategic foothold in the Sahel region. By securing a military and political presence in Burkina Faso, Russia is solidifying its role as a key power broker in West Africa. As Western powers continue to scale down their involvement, particularly in counterinsurgency operations, Russia is stepping in to fill the vacuum, offering military training, weapons, and security expertise to governments wary of Western political interference. Burkina Faso's geographic location in the heart of the Sahel makes it a valuable strategic asset. Russia's alignment with Traoré is not only about securing bilateral interests, but also about expanding its influence across a region long dominated by former colonial powers. The Russian Special Forces deployment sends a clear message. The dynamics in the Sahel are shifting, and Russia intends to play a leading role in shaping the region's future. This growing partnership with Moscow also reflects a broader recalibration of Burkina Faso's foreign policy. Once heavily reliant on France and other Western allies, the country is now reasserting its sovereignty by seeking partnerships that align with its national interests, free from the conditions and perceived neo-colonial agendas of the West. While Russia's involvement may provide short-term security benefits for Traoré's administration, the long-term implications remain uncertain. Burkina Faso continues to struggle with deep-rooted insurgency threats and political unrest. Whether Russian support will bring sustainable stability or merely entrench another form of external influence is still to be seen. What is clear, however, is that the presence of Russian commandos marks a pivotal turning point. Burkina Faso is no longer waiting for Western powers to act. It is taking its security into its own hands and reshaping its role on the global stage. Burkina Faso's pivot toward Russia is not merely a matter of convenience. It's part of a broader geopolitical realignment. The move reflects deep frustration with the West, particularly with France, whose military involvement in the region has increasingly been seen as ineffective and self-serving. Since the ascent of Captain Ibrahim Traore in 2022, Burkina Faso has faced repeated coup attempts, many of which have been blamed on internal elements with suspected links to Western interests. This perception of Western interference, especially France's long-standing military presence, has generated widespread resentment. Many in Burkina Faso see France not as a stabilizing force, but as a lingering symbol of neo-colonialism, undermining African sovereignty in pursuit of its own strategic and economic interests. Operation Barkhane, France's major counterinsurgency campaign in the Sahel, has failed to deliver lasting security. Instead of eliminating insurgent threats, it has been met with growing resistance from local populations who view it more as an occupying force than a protective ally. In contrast, Russia's engagement in the region is viewed as more pragmatic. It provides military assistance without demanding political concessions, fostering relationships based on mutual respect and shared objectives. For leaders like Traoré, this represents a more appealing model of international cooperation, one rooted in the principles of sovereignty and non-interference. Ultimately, Russia's involvement in Burkina Faso symbolizes a wider transformation in Africa's international relationships. As more nations on the continent grow disillusioned with traditional Western partnerships, they are turning to alternative powers that promise cooperation on more equitable terms. Whether this new alignment will bring the stability and independence African nations seek remains to be seen, but what is certain is that a new geopolitical era is unfolding in the Sahel. Burkina Faso and Russia. A strategic alliance against Western influence, Burkina Faso's growing alliance with Russia represents more than just a military partnership. It is a bold political statement against Western dominance in Africa. Both countries share a common adversary in the form of Western powers, whose frequent interventions in African politics are often framed in terms of promoting democracy, human rights, and stability. However, many African leaders increasingly see these narratives as a cover for control, resource extraction, and political interference. In contrast, Russia has consistently positioned itself as a counterweight to Western influence, advocating for a multipolar world where African sovereignty is respected. By aligning with Moscow, Burkina Faso not only secures critical military assistance, but also sends a strong message to the West. African nations are no longer willing to be dictated to by former colonial powers. Strategic and economic motives behind the pivot. Another crucial factor behind Burkina Faso's pivot toward Russia lies in the economic and strategic opportunities this partnership offers. Russia has become more active across Africa, investing in military training, resource extraction, and infrastructure development. For Burkina Faso, a nation rich in gold and other natural resources, Russian involvement could unlock significant economic benefits. This partnership presents a chance to ensure that national wealth is used to strengthen local development rather than enrich foreign corporations. Russia, long interested in Africa's resource-rich nations, markets itself as an alternative to the economic exploitation often associated with Western actors. For Burkina Faso, the collaboration opens the door to investment in vital sectors such as mining, energy, and infrastructure, while reducing dependence on Western financial aid and conditional support, a question of identity and sovereignty. Beyond economics and security, there is a deeper, more symbolic element to this partnership: the assertion of post-colonial identity. For many African states, the legacy of colonialism continues to influence their political and economic relationships. Russia's Cold War-era support for anti-colonial movements and its opposition to Western imperialism have earned it a measure of goodwill in Africa. While Russia itself is not free from foreign policy controversies, it presents itself as a respectful partner that supports African sovereignty without imposing political conditions. This approach resonates strongly in countries like Burkina Faso, where memories of colonial subjugation remain fresh and skepticism toward Western involvement runs deep. Traoré's decision to strengthen ties with Russia reflects a broader desire to break free from historical constraints and assert a new, autonomous path for the nation. A matter of survival in a volatile region. Importantly, Burkina Faso's alignment with Russia is not purely ideological. It is also a response to urgent security needs. The country is embroiled in a protracted battle against insurgent groups that have destabilized the Sahel region. With limited and often ineffective support from traditional Western allies, Traoré's government has turned to Russia as a practical solution. Russia's willingness to provide military support without the strings typically attached to Western aid makes it an attractive partner in a time of crisis. This cooperation includes the deployment of special forces, training of local troops, and provision of intelligence capabilities, all crucial to countering the growing threat from extremist groups. Geopolitical shifts in the Sahel. Russia's expanding presence in Burkina Faso also reflects a broader shift in the geopolitical dynamics of the Sahel. As France and other Western countries withdraw amid mounting anti-colonial sentiment and public protests, Russia is stepping in to fill the power vacuum. Burkina Faso's alignment with Moscow could set a precedent for other Sahelian nations seeking to reduce their dependence on Western powers. This emerging trend suggests a potential realignment in Africa's international partnerships, with more countries turning toward Russia and increasingly China as alternative sources of support. This shift could significantly alter the balance of power on the continent, amplifying the influence of non-Western actors in African affairs. An uncertain future for Traoré. Despite thwarting multiple coup attempts and strengthening his position with Russian backing, Captain Ibrahim Traoré's leadership remains under pressure. The country continues to face complex challenges, from entrenched insurgencies and deep political divisions to mounting humanitarian crises. Over 1 million people have already been displaced by ongoing violence, and the government is struggling to maintain control over large parts of the country. As the situation unfolds, the key question is whether Traoré can convert short-term survival into long-term stability. His government must now prove that the partnership with Russia can deliver tangible improvements in security, governance, and development, or risk further unrest in an already fragile nation. Security, stability, and the high-stakes gamble in Burkina Faso. Despite Captain Ibrahim Traoré's ongoing efforts to combat insurgencies, Burkina Faso's security situation remains dire. The recent deployment of Russian forces, including elite commandos tasked with protecting Traoré and key government officials, is a direct response to the intensifying threats. While this foreign military support has provided immediate protection for the regime, it remains uncertain whether it can offer a lasting solution to the country's deep-rooted instability. True, sustainable security cannot be achieved through external assistance alone. Traoré's government must confront the underlying causes of the insurgencies, such as widespread poverty, underdevelopment, lack of infrastructure, and weak governance, especially in the regions most affected by militant activity. Without addressing these foundational issues, foreign military intervention risks becoming a temporary bandage rather than a cure. A divided nation and the struggle for unity. One of the greatest challenges Traoré faces is uniting a fractured country. Since coming to power, his administration has faced significant resistance from across the political spectrum, ranging from entrenched elites and rival military factions to segments of civil society. This internal discord has been worsened by ongoing economic hardship, a rising cost of living, and the disruption of basic services due to persistent violence. While Traoré has garnered support from citizens disillusioned with Burkina Faso's previous ties to France and the West, his government has struggled to broaden its appeal. Winning the trust of the general population remains a significant hurdle. Complicating matters is the country's long history of military coups. With repeated regime changes and the military's central role in political life, Burkina Faso has developed a culture of instability. Allegiances shift rapidly, and loyalty to any sitting government is often tenuous. The recent failed coup attempt is a stark reminder of these fragile dynamics. Despite efforts to consolidate power, Traoré still faces a high risk of further military dissent. The loyalty of the armed forces, particularly the Presidential Guard, is critical, but internal divisions within the military are difficult to mend. Economic crisis and the gold dilemma. Beyond the political and security challenges, Burkina Faso's economic crisis looms large. The country's economy has been severely weakened by violence, which has disrupted key industries like agriculture and mining. Gold, one of the country's most valuable resources, has become both a pillar of economic hope and a source of controversy. Allegations of corruption and mismanagement have undermined public trust, and the full potential of the mining sector remains unrealized. For Traoré's government, leveraging these resources for national development is essential. However, the risk of falling into a new cycle of foreign exploitation remains high. Russia's growing presence in Burkina Faso, particularly in the mining sector, could offer much-needed investment and support for infrastructure. But this relationship must be managed carefully to ensure that economic sovereignty is not sacrificed in the process. Historically, the involvement of foreign powers in Burkina Faso's natural wealth has led to exploitation and disenfranchisement. If Traoré is to chart a different path, his administration must strike a delicate balance, welcoming strategic partnerships while maintaining firm control over national assets. Geopolitical risks on the global stage. Burkina Faso's alignment with Russia has opened new avenues for support, but also comes with significant geopolitical risks. While Moscow presents itself as a partner who respects African sovereignty and avoids the conditionalities typical of Western aid, aligning so closely with Russia could isolate Burkina Faso from other potential allies and expose it to international scrutiny or sanctions, particularly from Western powers. Traoré's government must navigate these geopolitical waters with caution. Relying too heavily on any one external power could compromise the country's autonomy in the long run. As Burkina Faso attempts to stabilize its political and security environment, the key question remains, can Traoré transform short-term foreign support into lasting national resilience? The geopolitical gamble. Can Traoré's strategy secure Burkina Faso's future? While Russia has stepped in with military support and positioned itself as an alternative to Western-backed interventions, Burkina Faso's pivot toward Moscow carries complex geopolitical consequences. Western nations, particularly France, have voiced growing concern over the country's alignment with Russia. Critics argue that President Ibrahim Traore may be trading one form of foreign influence for another, with Moscow pursuing its own strategic interests across Africa. As Western powers reassess their presence in the Sahel, especially amid the expanding roles of Russia and China, Burkina Faso's break from France risks further diplomatic isolation. This could have serious implications, particularly since the country remains dependent on international aid and development assistance to stabilize its fragile economy. To navigate this delicate geopolitical terrain, Traoré must strike a careful balance. Aligning with Russia should not come at the cost of severing crucial ties with the broader international community. Maintaining a multi-aligned foreign policy may offer the best chance for Burkina Faso to assert its sovereignty while still accessing the resources needed for national recovery. Despite the mounting challenges, there are opportunities for Traoré to build a more resilient and self-reliant Burkina Faso. His administration must prioritize reforms that directly impact the lives of ordinary Burkinabé, such as job creation, improved infrastructure, and enhanced public services. Furthermore, addressing ongoing human rights concerns and promoting inclusive governance will be essential for restoring domestic stability and international credibility. Ultimately, safeguarding the country's sovereignty while fostering constructive international partnerships will be critical in determining Burkina Faso's path forward. Whether President Traoré can rise to meet these challenges or whether his choices will backfire remains to be seen. What do you think? Can Traoré's leadership and alliance with Russia stabilize Burkina Faso, or is he walking a dangerous line? Share your thoughts in the comments. Want more deep dives into Africa's untold stories, its history, culture, and civilizations? Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more stories that spotlight the legacy and future of Black excellence.